I had this bedroom right across from my mother's.
Okay, so your mom and dad stayed in one bedroom.
Mhm.
Owner and Florence stayed in another one, and then Russell and
He
Shirley
slept
were in
up
one.
No,
No?
I don't know what
my
they did
mother
with
never allowed my brother to hardly be with girls. She was, I guess.
She hardly let her daughters be with your
If
boys.
he
either.
walked in the bathroom and when the girls were in there, he got a beating.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a beating. She just was very much against the close association of boys and girls at that time.
So he had his own bedroom,
Yeah.
He was upstairs.
and so you had your own bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had to share a room with Florence.
Yeah, but then I was gone, you know, when they were bigger and all, so I was out of the way.
I had to share a room with Florence, and that was a mess, because she was a very messy person.
But ordinarily though, when I grew up, we could have company come into our house and no, we would have to be ashamed. It was always straightened and cleaned up. I remember that
And
as I
the
look back.
odd thing about our house there was that upstairs in this big attic, my dad had a driving range for golf
In the attic.
in the attic where he could go up there and sock balls just to his heart's content.
Really?
And then the living room, we always had a
strip.
putting green, and we putted you put that anywhere, and
So he was big into golf.
yes,
Well,
my mother was too.
Yeah, my mother really took us in hand. We went to Jackson Park and learned she taught us how to play golf out there they had two golf courses on there, one a 9-hole and one 18.
We took lessons.
Yeah, and she taught, and then.
So you took golf lessons, you
then
probably
it
took
began-
swimming lessons.
Yeah,
Did you
see,
take
during
tennis lessons?
No, I played tennis though.
Did you take any other type of lessons
I
for
had
sports?
piano lessons, no.
Well, I don't think we took lessons for swimming.
No?
I think we just
Oh,
did it. We
oh,
learned
yeah.
it at school.
Well, we learned, also practiced it, my mother tried to teach us to swim out there in Long Lake too, when we went every summer.
Did your family play a lot of cards?
Oh,
Yes.
A lot of bridge?
No,
Well, yes, my dad and
Pinochle?
played,
Or,
my mother and dad played
Every
bridge,
kind of cards.
500,
Yeah.
pinochle, just about name it. And they had many good friends that they met often with each other's family, the houses and so on. They played cards quite a bit.
they were all Danes.
And we grew up playing games and we grew up having parties, good parties.
what kind of games would you play? Board games or
Yeah,
Whatever
the box
was-
games,
All kinds of
all
games.
kinds of games.
what kind of games would they have back then? I mean, you didn't have, probably didn't have Monopoly or,
No, Monopoly came when I was in college. I remember when that came.
so do you remember what kind of games?
Parcheesi, which is
Checkers,
and
Chess? Did
and
you play chess?
a little bit, not.
we didn't go overboard on that. But we played things like Crazy Eights and rummy of all kinds. And we played Mahjong, which was a forerunner for this rummy cubes. Rummy
Well, he
type.
played
I know
Mahjong
what
with
it's
Florence.
Yeah, but I mean, that came early. That Mahjong was early in the days, and we even had a ping pong set on our dining room table. She let us play ping pong.
Yeah, we just connected like on the table, and we played in the dining room.
So my mother was really good about letting us have company and letting us play games. And
Now, what would you do? Let's say today's families, they get together, they eat supper, and then everybody kind of watches TV or does, whatever. But in those days, when there was no TV,
Right.
did everybody eat supper, then listen to the radio, or did they?
No, immediately the
No.
adults would go over and play.
some adults would sit and
Cards.
visit, and some of the men would a few of the men would gather together and play cards. All the brothers did not play cards, but those who
Well, I
did
mean,
would play
a
cards.
normal night, just your family. Like
Just
everybody wasn't getting
do
together every
homework.
night. Right?
Oh, no, only on those
Do
special.
Like-
homework or read, and
on
we
a-
had a radio.
Like on a normal night, it's just you and your family at
Well,
home.
we listened to the top 10 songs on Monday night,
My dad liked a lot
and
of
on
it.
Friday nights you have the barn dance.
So would everybody
Saturday
just
night,
sit
right.
in the living room and listen to the radio, or?
Some would sit in the radio, some would be playing cards, and some would be doing their homework.
Reading or putting on our putting.
Never was bored.
No.
That's not a word in my vocabulary. And we did a lot of reading. We liked to read.
how do you see families
And we
different
practiced
today
putting, practiced
than
putting.
they were back then?
Well, they don't,
I think we were probably better trained in a way to fit the occasion, you know. They didn't say, you didn't have your way all the time and then cry if you didn't get your
Mhm.
way and then get it, but you,
well, there was always
We just-
something we could do,
always
and we
something.
didn't need to be,
Well, do you think that
we played a lot of croquet too.
well.
people
that was,
were growing up that families were more strict with their children than they are today?
Well, I used to wonder, because my Uncle Einers wasn't strict with his kids, and I used to, that, of course, that was way, this is judging up now the last part of their high school.
I mean, it's
and
kind of hard to
college-
judge because
college.
you were the kids and not the
Yeah.
adults.
The, some were strict and some weren't, and I remember my girlfriend saying, you know, after we were reminiscing years later, I said, my mother would say, why can't you be like Eva Francis? Florence and me, Shirley was always special, and she was always, I guess, always good. And, but Florence and I had our times, I guess. And so then I
Your
found out
times for what?
that we must not have been always good.
No,
But anyhow,
causing trouble?
maybe. And of course, I was bossy, being the oldest one. Besides, not only that, I was told that you know better because you were the oldest. But anyhow, this family friend of mine said, my mother, on the other hand, said, why can't you girls be like the Miller girls? And that was the first I'd heard her reverse that charge because we thought they were so good. And
But one thing at night, we all sat down to a nice table.
always
The whole family
Mhm.
with white tablecloths and all the nice things, and we learned to eat properly and everything
Hmm.
because everybody was served the same.
Now, did you learn to cook at home? Is that
Mhm.
where you learned to
Yeah,
cook?
we learned to cook. My mother was a wonderful cook.
She did most of it though. We helped to get things ready.
And then one year during the Depression, everything was so bad that my dad couldn't make any money, and my mother took a job.
In California.
She had to go to California for a year. So that was quite a thing. I can remember yet that my dad scrubbing the kitchen floor, and he never did anything. That was woman's work, you know. He never did things like that, and I can still see him scrubbing the kitchen floor, and I said, gee, that's something new for you, Daddy, isn't it? And so he had to take care of us for that 1 year when my mother was gone. She made pretty good money, but
As a
my
nurse.
dad couldn't do anything. There was no work.
He was only skilled.
I guess that was kind of, was it unique back then to have the mother and the father both working?
No.
No,
It was
most people.
unusual. That's why she had not been working prior to that.
That's what I'm saying, is
Yeah.
that it's very unusual that both would work, right?
Yeah. Well, then she would pitch in and help, you know, do that. But most women stayed home, took care of the family, the kids, and cleaned house.
Now, as you were growing up or going through the 30s, did you pay a lot of attention to like what was going on around the world? You know, it's easy today because it's all on TV, and you know you're hit with it.
We still had the radio, and we would listen
We
to
had all those gangsters in Chicago.
Yeah.
Whether-
Did you hear a lot about what was going on in Europe with Hitler and all that,
No.
or did that not happen until like?
Well, that was much
war
later. That
started.
was Hitler was way out. This other war was not Hitler.
Well, I know, but Hitler started his thing, you know, getting into power and doing things in the 30s, and it wasn't till, you know, 39 that war was declared. But before that, he was doing stuff,
Yeah, right.
and I didn't know if.
Well, the papers would be, young boys would be out selling papers. A lot of boys on the street corners were selling papers. Paper, all about it, read all about it. They had the news on the papers, and we would, and hear our radio. We would listen to the boxers. We had Gene Tunney and Jack Dempsey were the main boxers in those days.
And did you get to go to the movies a lot?
Once a week we got to
Once a
the
week?
movies, and we had beautiful movie houses. You could
Yeah,
go,
they were gorgeous.
and my mother would take us a lot of the time too. We'd be ready to go by 6 o'clock so we could get in on the afternoon prices. And when we went to a movie, this is what we got. We got the Pathé News, we got a comedy, we got coming attractions, we got a serial of some sort,
One that was gone on.
sort of like the
from week
Lone
to week.
Ranger type of thing, only in that.
Cereal, like a box of cereal.
No,
No.
a cereal, like this week, this happened,
week,
and the
and
next
then-
week you get
and
the
an
next
exciting
Oh,
part.
it's like a
stop,
clip.
stop, and you come next week.
Part of a movie or a
Mhm.
series that
Yeah.
keeps going
Then
on.
you get the main movie that you went for, and then after that, you got a whole stage show like they put on now at
So that could be like
at
3
Branson-
hours
at
long.
Branson. Beautiful, big shows. The Chinese acrobats, the Frank Sinatra's band when they
And
first
this was
came
on
out.
Saturday. You did
Saturday
this?
and Sunday.
Most of the time.
Saturday mostly.
Did you go as a family or did just like the kids go?
Well,
So
sometimes
my
you go
dad
with
didn't
your
go, but
friends
mother
and-
took all us kids together. We went, she would pop the corn, and we'd all have a little sack of popcorn with us, and there we would enjoy that movie. But my cousins got to go twice a week, and I thought that would be just ultra to go twice a week. And now I could see movies all night if I want to, and do I? No, I don't. But anyhow, once a week, and when we lived on Rhodes, it was, the little show was right near us, that was 10 cents to get in. That was just an ordinary little show, but you got everything but the stage on that one. But these big stage shows came in the Chicago Theater, the Tivoli, and where Iron, what's the name slips me, but they had a big theater over there. So, and then another big theater over near where Muriel lived. So these big theaters were put around the
Now these
city.
movie houses, they probably didn't start showing up until the late 20s, right?
Well, they,
Well, they had
They were
movies
in the
when they were
20s.
silent movies.
And that was in the 20s, right?
yeah, yeah, silent movies first.
See, 20, I was born in 19, I didn't know much in 20.
Right.
When
So
Shirley was little, I took her to see the first Peter Pan, and
Is it a silent
I had to
movie?
read to her what it said on
Oh,
the
yeah.
all those things. But it was the most wonderful experience that I ever had, I think, with a movie, because Peter Pan had said, "Now you kids, when Captain Hook comes on, you go boo and grrr and all that stuff. When Tinkerbell comes, you clap and clap to keep her alive." It was so fun. And they had upstairs, they had balconies, people sat in the balconies.
So when you were growing up and going to high school and college, what was the farthest that you were ever away from home? Like Minnesota, is that about as far as you ever
Well,
went?
that's the only place we went when we were growing up,
We
to
went-
a camping situation,
Did you ever go
Green Bay, Wisconsin.
to Europe, or did you
Oh,
ever
no.
go out to
Sail-
California?
no, never. Just to Long Lake, Indiana, to my uncle in Lansing, Illinois, which was probably 50 miles away, and up to Minnesota once every several years, not every year. And we went camping later on in our days into Green Bay, Wisconsin. A couple
We
of
took
times.
train rides to go to Wisconsin, Minnesota often.
One
My
time,
mother
I remember
and
that.
my brother and I would do it because they were gone.
Yeah,
And it was so much fun to ride the train. Well, now you go in less than a day, but
Right.
the roads and
we
things.
were on the
did
train
not-
all night.
And
Florence
we
and I
stayed
used
all
to
night.
play
We
that.
had these beds on the train, and we really thought that was
Pullman car, yeah.
great.
But see, after the 20s, I was gone. I wasn't home. I was to college for 5 years. So
And what was your degree in?
education, intermediate education.
Did you get a job right after college?
Yeah, oh yes.
Or did you have a choice? Did you have
Oh,
Did you have, how today
We
you
had
go
interview.
interviews here and there and there, and then you get job offers and you decide where you want to
Well,
go?
there weren't many of those things going on. The Depression was hard too, so I got a job at McNabb, Illinois, in a town of 100 people, and I got $800 for my year salary
As a school teacher,
as a school teacher.
did you
Had-
teach?
Had 3 classes,
whole
3 grades.
school?
No, I had 3 grades. Fourth, fifth, and sixth.
And where were you teaching?
McNabb.
Where's
That's
McNabb?
just south of LaSalle, and over in that area.
And did you get vacation or did you get summers
Oh, yeah, we
off?
got summers off, sure.
So what did you do in the summer?
Well,
Didn't go back to Chicago.
no, my folks lived there in Chicago. during that first year yet. They were in an apartment building in Chicago.
So what did you do all summer?
Well, I went to school, I went to college, went to get my master's at Northwestern. I spent summers doing that. Then it wasn't long, I was married,
What year did you get married?
1938. That was my second year of teaching, was down in Wood River, Illinois. Then I got $1,000 for the year. Big stuff.
And what was your degree?
I didn't go to college.
You didn't go to college at
I
all?
went to business school.
What business school?
What business school? I can't tell you the name of
Like
it
just
now.
about-
How long was the business
Well,
school?
the business course, let's say, was 9 months, but I got a job when I had only been there 6 months, so I never really finished the business school because I got this job, and I thought that was really great because
Tell them what kind of machine you worked.
well, it was called a contometer,
Yeah.
and it was a machine that you never went above a 5. If you wanted an 8, you push the 5 and the 3, and the 6 would be 2 3s or a 4 and a 2 or something, and you could really add very fast because you weren't going up and down like on a regular
Calculator.
calculator. So I went into Swift and Company, and they had I didn't do very good either, but then again I wasn't through with my course yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing it, and she said something about, well, I didn't get too good a grade, and I said, yeah, but your machines are terrible. They're just awful. You really should get some new machines. And where I got the nerve to do that, I don't know. But she liked that aggressiveness that I had more than she did my work. So she hired me. And that's where I met Ted then, is at Swift. We both worked at Swift and Company.
What did he do?
He was a bookkeeper. We were both in
So
the book.
he was a
Sort of an
adding
errand
guy
boy.
too?
No,
What's he
no,
doing?
he was,
He's an errand boy.
no, he
Part of
wasn't,
the
no,
time.
he was where they would really figure the things out, the bookkeeping out for different parts of the
And
industry.
why, when you got done with high school, at what point did you decide you didn't want to go to college and that you wanted
I
to?
was never, it was never an
Her
issue.
mother
with me.
enrolled her.
We didn't have any money, and there was no way to go to college, and
So how did you go to college if there was no money?
Well,
she worked her way
one
through.
day I told my folks, would you mind taking me to the train? And I'm gonna go to college, it's just like that. And when I got down there to college, I knew that I could go to the Dean of Women and ask to see, because everybody was working, so I could put my name in to get a job to work for my room and board,
Mm-hmm.
which she had pretty quickly because the lady that had the corner drugstore down there, one of the drugstores, one of the two, wanted me to come and cook meals for them. So I cooked meals for 5 years. And
Did they have college loans back then?
have what?
College loans?
Oh, I don't
Didn't
know.
cost very
So
much.
if your room, let's say your room and board was paid for, right? How did you pay for school?
All right, then I started out with $25 in my pocket when I went to
Right.
school, and that paid for 1 week in a boarding house till I could get a job, and $14 for my tuition
Tuition was $14
for the term.
for 3 months.
For 3 months, yeah. And we signed up, when we signed up there at Normal, it was called
$14.
Illinois State Normal.
That's not very much.
Well, it's more than I had most of the time.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, you're talking about the bank going under and taking all your college money. Well, how much was your college money? $100?
Oh, no, I'm sure when the money was in the bank, we had enough to take care of 4 years of college. But there was colleges then too, but I mean, they had different, anyhow, almost everybody worked at Illinois State Normal, which meant it was a teacher college. And if you signed up to teach, to take the course, you would sign up and say that if I graduate from here in 4 years, I will then, or for however long it takes you, for a 4-year course, you would promise to teach for 4 years. in the
And then
state
you
of
could go
Illinois.
for free?
So that was that $14 reduced down to that.
Reduced down to $14.
And then we had to get books, but, so the lady that I cooked for, they also had the drugstore, so I got to work in the drugstore for $3 a week. And out of that $3, I had to gather my books in the next tuition. And, like I say, young men were doing that. Some of them started a haberdashery, some of them started a little eating nook, and some of them started the Alamo, which is a bookstore that's still going. But everybody was working in those days, so you didn't even think about it, except the 100 girls that got to stay on campus in Fell Hall. There was only one dormitory at that time.
And so, Grandma, you decided you didn't want to go to college.
I didn't have any,
Never had a
nobody ever
desire.
offered me the thing of going to school.
Uh-huh.
But all my friends that I knew and liked real well, we all went to the same business school.
Uh-huh.
And it turned out to be very useful as I went along, because after we were married and the war started again, then we went to San Diego, and I went in to get a job, and I always wanted to be a clerk,
Mm-hmm.
like in your place, you know, I like to be a clerk. And the lady said, "And what did you do?" And I told her, and she, "No way could I be a clerk. I had to go up and do that. They needed those people real bad for that
The
job."
business office.
Yeah, and so I had, and then it turned out to be a very interesting job it was a big department store. And I got to go around reading all the registers every morning before the store opened. You know, you have to do that
Right.
on yours. And one day I had to it was too dark to see it, and I had to open the closet door, and there was a dummy in there that looked like a real person. Scared the liver out of me. And but that job was very useful, because you could get a job anywhere as a contometer operator.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
like
now they
computer
don't even
nowadays.
they don't even know what it is anymore.
Right.
And yet all my girlfriends and everything, they were all contometer operators. So that was just a thing to do.
Yes.
Nobody ever offered me college.
No, see,
Well, what did Florence and Russell do?
Russell
Russell-
ran away from home.
Yeah, he ran away from home in his late teens, and I've never really seen him a lot since then.
Did he finish high school?
Yeah, eventually.
No, I mean, did he finish high school
Not at home.
not at home? What grade was he in when he left?
He was a senior.
He was a senior in
He
high
went
school.
out to
He was
California.
planning to go into the Annapolis. And he
Mhm.
got all the tests passed, except they got to the physical, and he said he was flat-footed and couldn't go. And I have a feeling that he had been telling all his friends, "Well, I'm going to Annapolis," and he just didn't want to face all that, so he took off for the West. And he took his trumpet, and he played in a band for a while in Denver, and he'd go to California. He helped in the woods and to be a lumberman, and he has a big story there he could tell you.
He had a very interesting life.
But he was gone a lot, and then I don't know how long he was gone, 2 or 3 years. And he got into service.
What did Florence do?
Florence was sort of like Shirley, worked in an office.
She worked in the office.
See, that's what my mother had planned for me. She said, "Oh, I had just registered you in this business school." I said, "No, I just have to go to college." It was just sort of meant for me to do that. And so I went down to the same school where my Aunt Ellen had been a teacher at. My Ellen taught PE down at Illinois State Mall. So that's why I went down there. And I was gonna take PE, but because I was having to get meals ready for supper, I couldn't be out in the field playing ball or dancing in the gym or whatever PE I had to do. So I changed courses to general education. But in those days, some of the people only took 2-year courses to be a teacher. It wasn't you were unusual to take 4 years, but they had 4-year schools. And that was when the colored people weren't in school very much. We had 6 colored people there when I was, and they were so good that they were captain of the football and basketball teams, and that same person was still alive, and he went to Indiana to teach, and he looks great.
Now,
But
at home, when you guys were growing up, did you have a refrigerator that took black ice?
Yes.
Yes, I was gonna interrupt you a little
Yeah.
while back. It was so
Long
much
time.
fun. Down the alley would come the Iceman, and ice, and we kids would run out there and hop on the back of his wagon and pick
Piece
up
of
some of the little pieces of ice that when
We
he
had
had to use
alleys.
an
We had
ice
alleys.
pick to chop the ice. And
Did
then
your milk get delivered every day too?
Yes, the milk would get delivered, and the vegetables would come down a truck in the alley, and all kinds of vegetables and,
So did you go to a grocery store then?
Oh,
Or?
yes,
Yeah,
we had
went
many,
to the
many
store.
grocery stores. They were still, that we were really lucky.
but the nice thing about the ice
The
box.
National, A&D,
The
another one, the big one that's still.
Piggly Wiggly.
Kroger's.
Piggly Wiggly was the first.
They had stores all
Help
around.
Help
yourself.
yourself store.
But anyway, to the ice
There you
box,
go.
the ice
They
went
waited
in
on
from
it.
the porch, and it had two doors on it, the one there to get in, and then in the house, they had the regular door. And so anytime I couldn't get in the house, I'd go home and there would be nobody there, I would just take the ice out of the ice box and open the door and go in through the ice box and go back and put the ice back in. And
So the ice box was like connected to the side of the house? Or?
No,
No,
it
it
was
was
a
a
separate piece of
separate-
furniture in the pantry. And it's the first thing you saw when you went in the pantry that way, and also when you had
And
this
there was a
little
door,
hole
like a
on the
flat door
side.
outside
On
that
on
they
the
put the
porch,
ice in the
yeah.
back of the.
You can see, like here, here's a refrigerator,
Yeah.
and right here is another door, and this is a door.
Uh-huh.
And he opens this, the Iceman opened this one.
Was it a normal door or was it like a little hatch door?
No, it was just a nice,
Nice
nice,
door.
it was evidently a good, expensive piece of
And
furniture.
another thing, and it was about Chicago in those days, was when our neighbors had run out of something, they would knock on their window and we'd open our window and they said, have you got some onions or do you have some extra eggs? I'm out of eggs. And we'd put this stuff on a broom and pass it across the way to the next person over there. And
Or run it over either way.
so that was interesting that you could
You knew
pass
your
your
neighbors.
food over that way from one house to the other.
Did they have plumbing?
We had
Had
always,
everything.
all our life, we had
We've
showers.
always had running water, always had electricity, always had telephones,
Except up in Minnesota.
vacuums.
Yeah, we
Yeah, we
always
were
had,
lucky.
we
Except when
really,
you went to Minnesota?
Yeah, no.
But we
My
really
aunt-
had a
we to
nice
sit on a
life
cot in
because-
the bedroom.
we never had to go without really any of the necessities of life that a lot of people had to do in those days.
They had lights, oil lights and pump water.
And the man used to come down the street in the evening and light the lamps on the
Yeah.
street. And that was a job and,
Lamplighter, that's what Robert Louis Stevenson wrote about one time in a poem. We'd have the lamplighter. But I felt we were really lucky because after I grew up, I met some friends in Missouri and I met my friends here in Arkansas, and they never had electricity or running water until the 40s. And here we'd had it all our lives.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, it was really great.
yeah, we were lucky.
We had two-party telephones if we wanted. In fact, one time we got I guess got onto the phone so much or something, they began to charge by the call. And my mother had a nickel telephone installed in the for a while, where you had to put the nickel in and get your phone. You couldn't just pick up and call during this certain area. Because
Well, that's pretty expensive.
Florence was on the phone so much.
So,
But that was just a short time there.
and when we'd borrow the family car, we would put gasoline in the family car.
And that, I was not a part of that. I never heard of borrowing the family car.
Yeah, well, we
If
did.
I had a date, I walked or took the streetcar.
They didn't pick you up?
Oh, no, they didn't have cars either, guys did. That's the big difference in that 6 year, when I came home from college one time and saw her girlfriend sitting in the front room, some of them smoking and all dressed up and talking about their dates and how they went out and had to borrow the car and
We had lots of dates.
stuff like that. I said, oh, was life different? I felt like a country pumpkin.
So where did you go on dates?
Oh, we'd go to the theater a lot, and we'd bowl. And,
Did you go out to restaurants or
We
anything
went
like
out to the
that?
Aragon,
yeah, we danced a lot.
tripped Trianon,
Trianon, mostly. The Aragon once.
big band
twice a year.
dance. Oh, the big bands came in.
They're still talking about those two places on the, I hear it many times on the TV, that they talk about the Aragon and the Trianon and,
They really did. I went to church.
yeah, well.
On your
Or
dates?
once in, yeah, well, I was getting to walk to church with a guy, but that was pretty good.
Mhm.
But then we'd have a dance, school dance or the ROTC dance once or twice a year.
I thought your mom was real strict. she wouldn't even let you go on dates.
Oh, she didn't when we were 10, but
We did,
but I was 13 when I finally got nerve enough to say, could I go to this? They taught us how to dance at the junior high, and I wanted to go to that dance at the end of the course. And so it took a lot of, because I know my mother wasn't too hip about us having dates. So finally she said, yes, I could go.
when we had our dances, they were always down at the big hotels in Chicago. Very, very nice, and with the big bands like Wayne King and Guy Lombardo and all those people were at our school dances, because it was a big school.
Yeah.
And we had that, and it was so nice, and we got to, of course, we had to